All right, all right, all right. Welcome to Clozer Cult Podcast. My name's Alma Merrill, and today, we have Sarah Foley.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Well, let's get the audience. There we go. So Sarah is vertical blonde, and she's a trainer, coach, speaker, mentor, and just a dynamic human being all around. And I am really super stoked to have you on the show. Let's give it up again for Sarah.
I am super stoked for that intro. What's up?
Hey, thanks for being on.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I appreciate it. So just a little bit about Sarah. I was at a benefit the other night. It was called the Dreamers Foundation. And my friend Nuria Rivera puts this on. And we just kind of met there. And I had seen and heard all kinds of things about you, which was amazing. I was prompted kind of to just chat with you. And I'm over there. I see you go by and I'm like, oh, I've heard about her. I've talked to her. And my wife and I were talking, and she's like, and I said, hey, there's Sarah Foley. Like, I want to go talk to her and have a conversation with her and see if she'll be on the podcast. And Jennifer's like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, like,
Go do your thing.
Go do your thing. Yeah. And I don't think that she she just lets me kind of like do whatever. But anyway, she was like, yeah, you're always talking to everybody. I don't care, you know. But thank you for being on. Let me just adjust your lighting real quick.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure we have the perfect setup here.
Ooh, that's nice.
There we go. Ooh,
That's nice.
That's
Well
nice.
done.
All right. So anyways, so welcome.
Thank
I
you.
when we met, I was like, hey, I have heard you have an amazing story. And then I said, but I don't want to hear it yet.
Yeah, you said, don't tell me. Stop talking.
Don't talk to me. And then we proceeded to talk for another hour.
Totally. That was a long conversation, but there was so much depth to it right away. And I appreciate people like that, where it's like, I don't want another fluffy conversation. Like, I want some depth with people. So
yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. Very seldom do you come across people where you can just absolutely just avoid the short talk or the
Totally
the brief language or whatever, and just go directly into the deepest parts of our souls.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for
opening up the doors.
Yeah. And to your credit, you're very easy to talk to, which blew my mind. You communicate incredibly well.
Thank you.
And so I can tell you've had a lot of time communicating with individuals and stuff. So
I have, through all the different careers that I've gone through, and I even had a career in television, and then I ran a spa. So it's like, I feel like I've learned to navigate the different types of people, as well as like whether it's on camera or whether it's face to face. And so I really appreciate that, because actually a lot of effort has been put into it.
So you ran a spa before?
I did, yeah. So, and that's what I was doing when I got injured 10 years ago.
Okay.
So
wait,
yeah.
you got injured? I didn't know this.
What? Wait a minute. What are you sitting in?
So for those of you who can't see, Sarah is in a wheelchair, and she's going to tell a little bit about the story of how she got there and kind of how it adjusted or changed your entire existence, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm really excited to hear about that. So
Everything
before
changed.
we get into that, let's talk a little bit about where you came from, who you are, family, that type of thing.
Yeah,
and I know you
for
used to
sure.
live in Hawaii too. So
I
tell us a little bit
did.
about that.
So I was born and raised here in Sandy, Utah. I feel like I've almost come full circle, because I'm right down the street from my grade school again. But
What was your grade school?
So I went to Blessed Sacrament.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I went to private Catholic school from pre-K all the way through high school.
Sounds super blessed.
It was, yeah. But it was funny because, growing up in Utah, there's so much LDS, and
Right.
I didn't realize even there was until I got to college. I was like, well, where'd all these Mormons come from?
Yeah, right.
I've just been so
Like, they all
sheltered.
popped into this whole valley.
Yeah. So, so I went to the private Catholic school, and my dream was to be on Entertainment Tonight. Like, I wanted to be an entertainment news anchor. That was the goal.
Really?
That was the goal.
Okay.
And so once I got out of high school, I started going to college for a minute, and then I was like, you know what? I really just need to get out of state ASAP. Like I
Right.
need to get into Southern California. But also my stepdad really ingrained in me, make sure you got a good job, make sure you can pay your bills. So I went to massage therapy school in order to pay the bills while I
Did
went.
you go to UCMT here?
I totally went to UCMT.
Nice.
Yes. Did you go to UCMT?
No,
I feel
but
like everyone did.
I dated a
stint
lot
there.
of chicks that did when I was in college, though.
You're like, you want to practice? So, so that worked out really well. And I ended up getting recruited to a Palm Springs resort. So I spent
Nice.
all of my 20s in Palm Springs. I had the time of my life. I love Palm Springs. And while I was there, I ended up landing a local job, but it was basically Entertainment Tonight for the Palm Springs area.
Really?
So I got paid to like go to every big concert and fashion show and art gallery opening, all these fun events. And I got to go and do interviews with people, and I had so much fun. It was
Like
the best.
time of your life, dream
Time
come
of my
true.
life. Yeah, I'm in my 20s. Like, oh, life was really good. But what was interesting was that I was coming up on like 27, 28. I was starting to feel like I wanted to progress. Some stuff was happening with my producer. That show wasn't going as well. And I felt called back to the spa world. And so I ended up coming
Interesting.
up to Park City and landing the spa manager position up there. And then the director left within a couple months. And I remember my boss at the time, she was like, you're not ready for a director. Like, you've been manager for 2 months. Like, I love you. You're great, but you're not ready for a director. And we were in off season. I said, can you just do me a favor and like, just don't post the job yet.
Well, let me ask you this. How old were you at this point?
28.
28. Okay.
27,
Okay.
28. And I was committed. Like, that's kind of one thing about me. Like, if there is an opportunity, I want to take advantage of it.
Sure.
And so I said, just don't post the job. And I went to every single department director and just flooded myself with information and just became this sponge, asked him for insight and advice. And then one day I went in for my weekly meeting with my boss, and she offered me the job. And
Wow.
it was so good. I'm so proud of that moment. Yeah. It was one of my proud moments, because I feel like in your 20s, you don't realize that power of like proving yourself. And like, just if there's an opportunity, instead of saying, okay, they're going to post it, I can just lay down and do the, manager position.
Right.
Or I can step up and really go after it. And I loved that job. It was so fun. As much as I loved the television world, there was something really special about running a business. And there were the different types of people, right?
Right.
So like massage therapists are very emotionally driven, and you've got others that are very money driven. And so to your point of learning to navigate how to communicate with all these different types of people, I feel like that's where I learned the most was running this spa, running this department and team. And so I was doing that for about 3 years when everything kind of flipped upside down.
Okay. And that's where your story changes a little bit then.
It changes. Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like I'm such this believer that like everything we've gone through is preparing us for now.
Right.
Right? Like we need all of that. I needed my spa world. I needed the proving myself. I needed the television stuff. Like I needed it all in order to really get through.
Okay.
So yeah, I was down in Bryan Head with new boyfriend. We'd been dating for about 6 months.
Okay.
And just having the time of our lives. And he was very adventurous, and I'm a planner. So it was like, it was a little bit of like white knuckles all the time, but really excited. And his name was Sean. And so we went down to Bryan Head with another couple.
Shout out to Sean.
Shout out to Sean. And so the morning of, Sean and I went on this hike. And if you've been down to Bryan Head, you almost feel like you're on top of the world.
Oh, for sure.
Like we went out to this lookout, and it was just like, holy moly, I felt on top of the world too. And I look at him, I'm like, God, my life is just so perfect right now. And I kind of rattled off in my head, like, I got my dream job, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm in love. I'm in the time of my life. Like everything was checked, every box. And about 4 hours later, we went out on four-wheelers with the other couple.
Uh-huh.
And, I was really inexperienced. So Sean was like, look, like, I'm going to show you how to use it, keeping you safe the whole day. We're staying on safe trails. You've got the helmet. You're going to be on the bigger machine versus us. Like, I'm keeping you safe. Like, I got this. I said, perfect. I trust you. And at one point, this kind of fire access road went up and around the bend, and we couldn't quite tell what was on the other side.
Uh-huh.
So the guys went on up ahead, and after a couple minutes, we see Jim, the other guy, wave us up. He's like, you're good. And so I start going on up in front, and what we don't know is Sean's coming back down to get me and make sure that I'm safe.
Right.
So as we come around the bend, Sean and I lock eyes, and it's that moment of like split decision. What the heck am I going to do? And he got so far to the one side that I could have just kept going straight and been fine. But my brain said, get off the trail, get off the trail. And I did. And my front wheels hit a ditch, and I started flipping through the air. And I can still hear the crunch, like, of bone and metal. Like, it was so deafening and loud. And I can still see it when I close my eyes, like the ground and the sky and the ground and the sky. I think adrenaline just totally kicked in. I didn't black out at all. I remember all of it. And all of a sudden it stopped flipping. I was then laying on my left side, and I could see Sean's boots running at me full speed. And his face is just covered in terror. He is like screaming this noise I will never get out of my head. It was deafening. And from that reaction, I was like, oh no, like my ears where my eyes should be. Like I felt like I was going to be mangled. And so I screamed at him. I said, don't move me. Call Life Flight. How's my face? And
how's my face?
He still gives me crap about
it. It
that.
looks great, by the way.
Thank you. But based on like his reaction, I was like, oh my God. And he just comes up to me, and I'll never forget it. He has just tears screaming down his face. And he just says, honey, you are so beautiful, but I do not know about the rest of your body. And there wasn't a scratch on me, not even carpet burn. It was crazy. It was all broken bone. Like it had smashed so fast and flipped so fast that there was no skidding at all. And so my brain luckily was fine. The helmet was smashed. So the fact that my brain still works perfectly is a blessing.
Well, the helmet did its job, right?
It totally did its job. Actually, Sean won't let me see it. He's seen it, and he's just like, I think for him, that trauma of watching it, and that would unfold, the rest of our lives together. But watching that happen and feeling responsible, that really took over him. And he just wants to keep me safe, right? Don't look at the helmet. I just want to keep you safe.
Right.
So, so I had snapped my clavicle, and I had like landed on my left side. So that was the pain that was really distracting me. Uh-huh. But I had broken my back from my rib cage down. So it's kind of like right around the rib cage. And so that goes, I call it my ring of fire. It goes from like feeling to no feeling, but the ring right where it goes from the two is just, it's so on fire. It's super sensitive. And
even to this day, do you still have that?
Even to this day. And Jim had been pinching my toes. My shoes had flown off, but he was pinching my toes, and he realized before any of us did that there wasn't any feeling. And I'd broken every rib, my back at T4, and then snapped my clavicle. No organs were affected, no blood. My brain was great. It was just bone.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So at that moment, when the dust settled and you were kind of there laying there, what were the thoughts that kind of went through your head? And was there a moment when you realized, hey, this isn't the same? This isn't normal?
Well, what's really interesting is that the whole time that was happening, in my head, I was like, I'm going to be okay. Like, these kinds of things do not happen to people like me. Like, and I kept kind of rattling that in my brain, like, I'm going to be fine. Like, I've been a good person. Like, I'm thinking about karma, and I'm like, this doesn't happen to people like me. And Sean was so distraught that honestly a lot was about calming him down, like bless his heart, but he was so worried. And yeah, so it was really about calming him down, telling myself I'll be fine. And then the clavicle pain was really distracting. So it took Life Flight about an hour and a half to get there. And then once they did, they got me into the helicopter and started pumping the morphine. And then they took me to Las Vegas Hospital because it was closer. So Sean had the horrible duty of driving and calling my mom, my stepdad. Like he had to make
and
those
just
calls.
tell everybody, hey,
She's been hurt.
She's been hurt.
Yeah. And everyone that found out about it said they just went to autopilot. So my mom, she's a travel agent. So she was like already at work booking. She like booked her flight and got to the airport because so many people got to the airport. But the one thing that I didn't even find this out until about 3 years ago was that when they got me to Vegas Hospital and they were getting me ready for surgery, I made one phone call and I made it to my mom. And she said, right as I landed in the airplane, my phone started ringing in my purse. Answered, it was you. And she said, you sounded like this scared little girl. She said, you sounded like you were 5 years old. Just so scared.
Wow.
And she said, that I said, Mom, the doctors think that if they can relieve the pressure, that I'll be able to walk again. And she just said it was like tunnel vision. All of a sudden, everything became super real and super serious. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at that from the perspective of a parent,
that chokes me up, like thinking about getting a call like that from my little boy. I cannot imagine. I can't imagine.
I can't imagine.
So, and I mean, I'm 30 years old at this point. So it's not like, I'm a little kid, but I'm still her kid.
But aren't we all kind of still
Totally.
little kids inside?
Totally.
I mean, we're just little kids that are in a grown-up body is all we really are,
Like I'm still trying to figure this thing out. So, so having that phone call and then not realizing I had said that to her until, this might be kind of a spoiler alert, but until I realized how to release the pressures in my own life.
Right.
Like, and really get aligned in some ways, that saying alone has now spoke volumes to me. So anyways, so this is the part of the story where I can get really detailed or sum it up. And it's funny because I've now, I've told my story quite a few times. And I used to get really, really distracted by this part, the rehab part, the hospital part, all of that.
That's the next challenge, right? After something like this happens, you have all this emotional trauma affiliated with it, or these having to accept and acknowledge what's your next reality or your new reality.
Totally.
To now I have to go through rehabilitation and learning and all these other aspects of, using a wheelchair or whatever. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. I'm really interested how that went for you.
Well, it's interesting because you said the emotional healing. And when you are in the hospital and rehab, they've got one job, and that's to get you physically well.
Right.
Physically well enough to go home, physically independent enough to go home.
Right.
So I was in Las Vegas for about 3 weeks. When they transported me to Colorado for my rehab, I actually contracted spinal meningitis. So by the time my plane touched down, I was really sick.
Oh my gosh.
And so they rushed me to the ICU, and I was there for about 10 days. I actually don't remember any of that.
Really?
You know what the one memory I have that I'm like, why was this even taking place? I don't know. But I remember I was watching Moneyball with Sean, and I was rubbing his feet. And I'm like, I was like, that's just the most random.
You were rubbing his feet?
I was rubbing his feet.
And you were watching Moneyball.
And I was like on my deathbed. Why was I rubbing his feet? I don't know. It's so funny to me.
Let's get one last massage.
Yeah, it's like, let's take advantage of this. So maybe it's just our way to connect, but I just think it's so funny. That was like my one memory.
Did he have good feet?
He's got okay. I mean, they're man feet. Like
I have good feet.
Do you?
Yeah, they're really nice.
Okay.
They're really pretty.
That is great to hear. And I would expect that from you, Alma. I would highly expect that. Anyways, so I get over to finally into rehab, and every day it's like, I'm gonna walk out of here. Like I don't need to learn this stuff. I'm going to walk out of here. My body's going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. Acceptance was like bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
So I was under this impression that I was still going to be fine. Everything was going to work out. And so I did my rehab, but I would kind of call in sick a lot.
Right.
Oh, I can't make it to wheelchair class. Wheelchair class scared the death out of me. I was the only girl on my floor at this time. It was all guys. And guys love their wheelchairs. Like, they do tricks. They're all about the wheelies. Like, they just have the time of their life. And I'm like scared of my own shadow in this
You're
thing.
more utilitarian about it. You want to figure out like how to live, not like how to survive, not die in this thing, right?
Well, exactly. And I'm like, I want to like look cute in this thing. Like, my priorities were very different.
Sure.
But learning everything all over again.
I always wonder like what like the psychology behind that transition of going, okay, this is a part of my existence now, something fresh and new, but I'm going to have to learn how to fully integrate it into my entire everything.
Well, and the fact is that we don't want to. This fact of being disabled, I don't know about you, but like I had some really ugly views of what disability was.
Yeah.
Like, if they weren't old, they were overweight, unhealthy, not employed, not joyful, not energetic. Like, none of those things existed with having a disability in my head.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a stereotype that a lot of people have,
Yep.
which is actually, it's true in some cases, I think, in
Yep.
a lot of cases. And then I think that's why it's such a contrast to see someone like you that is like thriving on such a high level. And it's extreme. Like, you stand out not because you're in a wheelchair, but because you light up the room. I mean, I'm at this event the other night, and the first person that lights up the room, besides Jennifer, my wife, I see you and you just light up the room. I'm like, that's Sarah.
Oh, I
So,
love
yeah.
that. Thank you. It's actually like why I get ready every day. It's why I get up every day, is to redefine that. And what's really scary too is that even those that don't want to be that way, right, that they get injured or illness or something, you become what you believe.
Right.
And I saw it in myself that over the next 4 years, the denial was deep. I did not want to accept it. I was putting on the happy smile for everyone. And as soon as my door would close, like in my car or wherever I was, I would just bawl. Like, the pressure of trying to be happy and not being happy, it was so exhausting. And
I can imagine that would be, because you're trying to help others be okay with this.
well, at that
too,
point,
right?
I wasn't even trying to help others. I
Really?
was just trying to live. And actually, I was trying to like X myself away from the community.
Were you?
I didn't
were,
want anything to do with it.
Gotcha.
I didn't
Yep.
want any friends that had disabilities. I didn't want any piece of
I
it.
was wondering that, or I was thinking about you this morning as I'm shaving my beard line. No, I didn't shave my beard line. Oh, I was putting in beard wax, right? And I was thinking about that this morning, and I was like, I had watched one of your Instagrams, and you said, what's the difference between the person that really thrives after something that gives you basically PTSD and somebody who doesn't? What's the difference? How does it, what has to change inside their mind in order for them to have a more positive outlook on that? So this is kind of as you're trying to redefine that, right? This
Yep.
point in your life.
And I think, so I remember it really clear too. So it's about 4 years after. At this point, we had moved to Maui. So to sum up what had happened in those previous 4 years, again, I'm like, what details do I need to include?
All of them.
All of them.
All
We'll
of
be here
them.
all day.
Hey, we got another 25 minutes.
But basically, the hardest part, the very hardest part, is when you leave the hospital. There was a revolving door. I had visitors all the time. I had gifts. I had the best food brought to me. Like, I was like a celebrity. And then you come home and everyone's gone back to their regular lives and everything's the same, but nothing's the same.
Right.
I hated everything about this. And the highlight of my day was watching The Price is Right. That was like the only thing that got me out of bed.
Bob Barker or
No, it was Dana Carvey, or wait, what's his name?
What's his name?
Drew Carey.
Drew Carey.
Dana
Yeah.
Carvey.
I was wondering which episodes do you like the most? Drew Carey.
But that was the only thing that got me out of bed.
Right.
And so then I got really committed to getting back to work. And it was like anything that I could do to just pretend it didn't exist. And my spa and the resort, they had just gone to bat for me. They redid my office. So it was fully wheelchair accessible. They got me a new desk. Like they completely remodeled it. They loved me.
Awesome.
Yeah. They were so good to me. This was Vail Resorts up in Park City. So they were so good to me. They
Oh my gosh.
loved
That like
me.
gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Makes me
They were so good. And so I got back to work, but I was not all there. I was like getting sick a lot and working from home a lot. And, it was nice being the boss and being needed after these months and months of being so in need.
Right.
So I stayed there at the resort for another, I guess, 3 or 4 years. And then Sean and I got married. We got married on the anniversary date of the accident.
Oh, wow.
On our 2-year. Talk about denial. We're like, we're just going to make it a good day and not a bad day. Like that was literally our psychology. We're just going to erase the bad.
Right.
And I think that was our survival mechanism, right? Me and Sean, it was like, what can we do today to pretend like it didn't happen? And if I couldn't go somewhere, he would just pick me up. Like it was just, we could just get anywhere we needed to go. We could do whatever we wanted to do. But there was just not this emotional awareness. And so we'd moved to Maui, had a little boy.
What was his name?
Charlie. Gnarly Charlie.
Gnarly Charlie.
He's so cute. He's got this long blonde surfer hair.
Aww.
He's 7. And
was he born in Hawaii?
No, he was born here and we moved shortly after.
Okay.
So he basically grew up in Hawaii, which I love because the culture is really special. And then giving birth was like the easiest thing on the planet.
Was it? No
anything.
epidurals?
Nope. That baby came like in the middle of the night, woke up and I was like, my body feels kind of tight. And Sean turns on the light. It's like 3:07. He's like, your water is broken.
Oh, wow.
We gotta go. So we head over to the hospital. I called my mom, my best friend, Mary Jean. They barely make it. And I pushed twice and this baby's out.
Wow.
It was it was
Wow,
out
what
at
a
4:19. Such a gift.
One of the gifts.
Seriously, I'm like, what are you guys complaining about childbirth? It's so easy. I got this. So, so Charlie arrives. We head over to Maui. But I remember one day I looked in the mirror and I finally just really addressed and saw how sad I was inside versus this thing I was trying to upkeep from the outside, just trying to be happy. And I just really saw that. And then I saw all the stereotypes. I'd gotten unhealthy. I'd gotten overweight. I was now unemployed. Like the list went on.
So all the things that you didn't want to be or do or have in your life, you started to
And
have.
it takes over so slowly that you don't really recognize it. And then this one day I was in a full-length mirror and I was like, whoa, like something's got to change. And that
was a defining moment.
It was such a pivotal moment. It was a moment of impact for sure. And so I decided to hire a trainer because I was like, first thing I was like, I got to feel better in my body. And so I feel like I met 3 healers in Maui. One was my personal trainer. The other was this artist. And then the other one was, I call her my medicine woman, but she was my therapist.
Okay.
And so between my three wise men, or whatever you want to call them, just so much healing took place. And so all this, I was pouring so much love into my body, working out every day. And him and I were really like, we were new to personal development. So like everything we just found out, we were super excited to finally tell someone that was excited.
You and Sean?
No, this was me and my trainer,
okay,
actually.
You and your trainer. Okay.
Yeah. So me and my trainer, like we would get together for these sessions and we would go back and forth about everything that, we learned about personal development. And did you know our words have power? And did you know this about beliefs? And, like we were super babies, but we were all excited about it. And then I met this artist and she paints what she calls her fantasy portraits. So she'll paint you as like a mermaid or a goddess or a fairy.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
It's really cool. And she had kind of this art display out at a restaurant one day. And I was walking by and like the colors were just mesmerizing. Like talk about light up a room, like the colors and the movement in the pictures, and they were just so beautiful. And she just comes up to me, and have you ever had someone that like looks right in your eyes? You're like, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah,
Like
you.
they like look into their soul. Oh,
you were
shoot.
that person the other
Really?
night. Yeah, you're like
Oh.
piercing my soul.
Oh
And I was
my
like,
gosh.
this girl, she's really getting me. Like we're having this conversation. I'm telling you about like my traumas
Oh my
growing up.
gosh.
And I'm actually having memories as I'm going through some of the things we talked about the other night. I started to have all these additional memories. I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about that for years. So yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
I
I
love
have.
it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, it's like that. That's exactly how she was.
Uh-huh.
And she just comes up and she's like, what's your fantasy? And I was like, oh my God, like to walk on the beach. Like that's it. In a nutshell, I was like, I just want to feel the warmth of the sand in my toes. Like I just want to walk on the beach. And she just looks at me and she says, I can paint that. And so we ended up forming this really beautiful friendship. She's still one of my dear friends to this day. And she began painting, but in order to get my features, she does like a photo shoot first.
Okay.
And I was in my wheelchair and she was taking my photos, and she had this confidence and presence about her that I longed for within myself. And so she brought that with this like unspoken invitation to just play and expand and whatever I needed to do in that moment. And so I was wearing kind of this sheer, I wanted to feel beautiful again in my skin.
Of course.
So I was wearing kind of this sheer blue thing across, and I was there posing, and then I was kind of getting into it more and more, and she's just like encouraging it. And I swear it felt like someone poured warm oil over my head. Like I'd just been anointed. And all of a sudden I felt so alive. I felt so connected to my body. I felt so in love with my body again. Like there was just this like reverence for my body.
Wow.
And it was so powerful. And
that is beautiful.
it was so beautiful. And even my mom was there because I was like, will you get some behind the scene pictures? And she's like, I couldn't breathe. She's like, it was so mesmerizing to watch this, to witness. She says, my baby girl, like coming back to life. And it was so incredible. And then, I mean, dude, I got to show you the painting, because then the end result is me walking on the beach.
Yeah.
And I had to send her like old pictures of my legs when they were walking. And it is my body. It is so my body and my face. And it's so right. Like my painting is looking at me like that. And so now it's like when I almost feel like doubt, it's like I look in my own eyes, if that sounds weird or not.
Oh, definitely.
But I will like stare at this painting of just like, what do I need to do next? Like what's going on?
What a gift. I mean, the painting's almost become a guide maybe for you.
I think so. And, I call her Vertical Blonde because Vertical Blonde became this like alter ego for me.
Right. Yeah.
And the painting's called Beach Walk. It's pretty cool. And it just changed my life so drastically.
Is that where you came up with the Vertical Blonde
It was
tagline?
around the
that?
same time. But afterwards, after I finished my photo shoot, I just said, oh my gosh, I found my calling. Like I need to help this happen in other women. That was just like,
because you know that there's other women that are facing those same things and those same trials and are damaged emotionally and mentally from these types of traumas.
100%. And whether they're walking or not, like there's so many different ways that people can feel disconnected. And, I've spoken at retreats for girls who have been sexually abused as children and like that disconnect. And there's so many types of disconnects that people are dealing with that we have no idea.
Well, and I think this is so relatable. I mean, a lot of people would look at this and go, this is the drastic version of what potentially could happen in life, right? But I think the reason your story is so compelling and so relatable is because as you're speaking, I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, I felt that before. Oh yeah, I've seen that in my life. Okay, I've had those emotions. Yeah, I've felt that trauma. And I think, regardless if people have had the same outcome or circumstances, ultimately, the ability to kind of connect with you on that level is really high. And I think that's why people respond to you so well.
I appreciate that. That really does mean a lot to me because since that moment on, that's just been my focus. And
You have a gift.
thank you.
You have a gift. And I saw it last night or the other night when we were at that event. I saw how the people lit up when they saw you. And as much as maybe this has been or had been at some point a tragedy for you, honestly, and I know you follow Tony Robbins a lot, and he says, life happens for you, not to you.
Yeah.
And all of these things are gifts. And so thank you for turning this into a gift for all of us that have the ability or the opportunity to meet you and talk to you and
Thank
allow
you.
your eyes to pierce our souls.
Put on some blinders. Well, in Hawaiian, they call it your kuleana. So your
okay.
kuleana is your responsibility to yourself, to others, and the world. And I like to think of it as like, because I did, you can.
Oh,
And because you did, I can. Right? But we have to do it for ourselves first. I can't teach any of this if I haven't experienced it to my core.
Right.
And so I think that sometimes, and I've even done this, like, what should I be teaching? And, am I like a business coach or am I this coach? And it's like, no, you are a coach to help people break through that old story, that old trauma, and get reconnected. Like
for
that
sure.
is
Yeah.
that is it. And it's come with a lot of work. And around the time of the painting, friends and family kept wanting to know how things in Maui were. And because at this point I was like, I think Maui's going to heal me.
Right.
Like Maui's going to get me walking this
Interesting.
energy. And I came to Maui thinking it's going to heal me. And it did. I mean, I'm not walking, but I don't think I'm supposed to. And so I created this blog, and that's where I came up with Vertical Blonde. Because I was like, if I know my words have power and my goal is to walk, that is it. And then it was fascinating because this version of myself, this version of Vertical Blonde, started to kind of take over. Like that's like me at my fullest potential is kind of how I think of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I get to tap into her and I get to use her to my advantage and know that it's not an alter ego. It is a part of me. That is the part that knows what to do. Like,
right. It's an inner part of who you actually are, not an
Totally.
alternate
Yes, exactly.
reality. Yeah.
And so I really doubled down on her, and I call her my iconic identity. And I use her, I utilize her, and it's been such a gift. And slowly all these things kind of happened. It was like a vertical mindset that life's happening for me, and there's this vertical way of going through life and seeing the bigger picture and
right.
Taking the high road. And it was just all these things that the word vertical represented for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, I can't find the right word. I was going to say inspiring, but it's more than that. I mean, it's enlightening, I should say. It's enlightening. I mean, I feel light when you talk about that.
That's awesome.
So,
I love that.
So what is your focus right now? Where are you taking yourself, and where is Vertical Blonde going?
Ooh, that's exciting. Gives me the chills. Sometimes my own bigness really scares me. And so I feel like this has been a gift.
It feeds everyone else.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Putting that in my heart. I'm writing my book, first book, I should say.
Do you have a name for the book yet?
I do.
You can't release it though yet.
Should we unveil it?
I don't know. On my show? I don't know.
I'm really excited about it. It's called Becoming Vertical.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's because I love the word becoming so much. We forget, like they always say, it's like not the goal, but who you become in the process, right?
Right.
But we don't talk about the becoming part enough. And it's so gritty and it's so ugly at times and it's so hard and it's so debilitating and disabling sometimes. And like the becoming part is the grit, but it's also the juice and it's the heart of who you become. And I've become vertical. I've become such a different level of myself, but it's the becoming part that we don't talk about enough.
Wow. I love that name.
Me too.
Wow. That is just so freaking fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
It is such a great descriptive, presentation of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes. Yeah. And so that is literally in a nutshell. I do a lot of speaking. I love speaking.
Yeah, you've spoken at multiple places that I typically
Yeah.
frequent.
You've
I
always
missed
missed
you.
it.
Yeah. And it was what's funny is that I'm like, oh, I want to go for this. And then like something like massive comes up that I cannot make. I was like, oh, how do I freaking keep missing this girl speak?
Well,
It's
that's
like,
good because then it set us up for a better interview, I think, too.
yeah, I think so.
And I
think
don't
so.
get into all these details when I speak either. Usually there's a bit of more of an agenda. I'm a highly interactive speaker. They're kind of more workshop style than just talk.
Right.
So I used to be a talk speaker, and then I kind of bored myself and transitioned. And then speaking of Tony Robbins, I did get trained as a breakthrough coach. So that is
you did?
my entire existence is helping people break through.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
With the Tony Robbins
Yeah,
organization.
I did.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
I know. And I've got like a specialty with women. So that is, getting them connected to their bodies and break through their traumas. It's really cool.
So now tell me a little bit about how that has changed the way you think about yourself. Like, tell me how that has, because I know there's an adjustment that takes place mentally, emotionally, when you went from the kind of the negative image of who you were to who you are now. I mean, was the tragedy, was the accident truly a gift for you in the end? And the question everybody wants to know, would you change it if you could? You've probably heard that before.
Totally.
Would you change it if you could?
It depends on the day. If I'm at the beach, I would change it.
Okay,
I want
right.
to feel that sand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it depends on where I'm at, that I still get pissed off. I still get annoyed.
Sure.
I still have issues with my body that I have to deal with for the rest of my life. And yet, ...
Right?
I am really grateful for it. And I feel like it did end up giving me everything I wanted. Because thinking back to my television career, like I loved that career. I loved what I got to do, but I didn't really love the industry and it felt kind of empty.
Right.
Like
right.
I had
kind
this
of
platform,
superficial a little bit.
but I didn't have anything juicy to talk about, right? It was like, here's the next fashion show. Which is fabulous when you're in your 20s.
Which doesn't really dive into who you are, and it doesn't really allow you to live your purpose, right?
Well, and up until that point, I was more superficial.
Okay.
You know,
right.
There wasn't depth. I didn't look
this
at my
is what I want to get into. Like, were you a little diva or
not even diva, but it was just like I was staying surface level.
Okay, yeah.
Like I didn't go deep with myself. I didn't pierce anybody's eyes back then, right? Like it was very me focused. Like just the fact that I said my life was perfect.
Right.
It's because everything worked out in every area. Like there was
that
no
seems
challenge.
Kind of boring to me.
Right? We think it's perfect, but it's actually totally missing any juice.
Right.
There was no becoming.
Right.
There was none. And so now I'm like, I got that dream, right, of having a platform and having a microphone because like this. Like I love this. Okay?
I love it too. Yes.
I love it. There's something so special about it. I love the equipment. I love it all. I love getting mic'd up before I speak, like that part. So I love that. And now I've got something so beautiful I get to share. There's so much depth to this love, right? And so I get to marry the two, and I wouldn't have been able to do that before. My little boy is way more resilient and cognizant of other people.
Right.
Because mom's in a wheelchair. Like he has to do certain things. He's had to step up.
Now, do people really live their fullest self if they haven't had tragedy? Do they really live their fullest life if they haven't faced death or tragedy on a high level?
Well, I guess it depends on how they define fullest life. And we also don't know what we don't know. Like I felt like it was this full, perfect life, but I didn't know what going through and processing and healing and overcoming and reinventing myself felt like.
If you were to look back now and you were to talk to your 30-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Well, I'd probably say you're right. You will be okay. But it's not going to look like what you think it is. Stay the course. Stay the course. Go where it's uncomfortable. Do what's uncomfortable. Say what's uncomfortable. Don't forget that your body is still a part of you. Don't forget about the parts of you that you can't feel. That's kind of the biggest one that I try to get to people that have just been injured.
Right.
Because that's also...
Do they tend to disconnect a little bit?
Completely. Because all your focus is on the parts that you can use to get you independent. And the very first days is when the healing can take place. The reconnection can happen. And I wish I would have tapped more into my massage and energy background.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
But I almost assumed to a fault that I would be okay. So I didn't. I didn't put the energy into that stuff. I had fun in rehab. I had fun in the hospital. Like, so, but yeah, I would say do not forget about the parts that you cannot feel.
That is an interesting message. That was one that I didn't anticipate but it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense to me. And maybe that's a message to those that are having emotional challenges as well, that are not feeling themselves entirely, or that are not feeling what they used to feel when they felt joy or happiness or, success or whatever, is to not forget those parts of you that you can't feel, they're still there. You may not be able to feel them, but they're still there. It's still you.
Yeah. 100%.
So what's your last message to the world?
Ooh. Don't forget about the parts you can't feel.
I love it.
Just that you will be okay, but don't put your hope and confidence in the hope, right? That you hope it will all work out.
Right.
I'm okay.
Hope is not a very good strategy for success, is it?
And that's what a lot of people do. Like, I'm going to be okay, but they're putting their confidence in something outside of them to make sure that they're okay. Put that back in yourself. Like, I'm okay because I chose to reinvent myself.
Right.
I chose to face the hard things. I choose how I get up and get ready every day so that I am a visual representation to debunk everything they thought about disability.
Wow.
Like, every single day, that is my mission in getting up and going through life, is that anyone that sees me says, everything that I thought about disability just went out the window. So.
Right. Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. Honestly, I this has been one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to top this. So maybe I won't play this for 3 years till after the podcast. Where can people find you?
So everything's Vertical Blonde. So Instagram's Vertical Blonde, verticalblonde.com, all the above. I'd love to hear from you.
Oh my gosh, you rock. You are amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of Clozer Cult Podcast. Thank you, Sarah Foley, Vertical Blonde. We'll see you guys next time.